Hello, welcome to Tech Tuesday. This is Rick Uzzi. I'm going to be talking about PreEqualization Analyzer today and going through some additional enhancements that we've shown recently. So stand by and I'll be right back. Hey there. Thanks for joining me again. This is Rick Uzzi with ZCorum, and it's Tuesday, 3 o'clock, so it's Tech Tuesday. And last week, I went over some of the enhancements that we've made to PreEqualization Analyzer, which is our DOCSIS proactive network maintenance tool, our P&M tool. And it's now on version 4.5. So it's been, if you've been with us for a long time, you've seen lots of changes, lots of improvements in the application, and that continues. In fact, version 5.0 is going to be coming out this year, so you can be looking forward to that. And right now, we're kind of settled on this version. No more changes in this until 5.0 comes out. So again, just be looking for 5.0. But here, I wanted to cover a few things that are different enough in 4.5 where it's maybe can help you out as far as getting more use out of the application. If you have any questions, if you're watching us live, have any questions, just click on the chat in YouTube and I'll try to address those as best I can, or I'll get back to you with an answer if it's way over my head. If you just want to say hello, something like that. Happy Tuesday, Rick Yinger, welcome. Again, I'll go ahead and get started now, show you what's going on with PreEqualization Analyzer. So you're looking here at the main dashboard, and I wanted to show the detail view today and talk a little bit about a couple of changes with correlation groups that will help you track them over time. So let's make sure everything's moving here. Yep, looks good. So on the detail view, you're going to, actually in the dashboard view, you're going to click on detail view to bring up the map that you're used to seeing, and I've blurred some things out here on the map, but you can see what we're doing. So right here you can see when you pull up the map, you've got your signature tab, and this is where you're going to access to get to your correlation groups, as that hasn't changed. So you're going to click on your signature tab, and then again this will pull up. This should look very similar if you've looked at correlation groups before. And we're going to go ahead and pull down the little drop-down box here, and I would just click on, again, these are all screenshots because I can't show live here. I'd be showing customer data, but end user subscribers I definitely don't want to show. So I'm going to pick the first one here, and you can see this is a fairly tight correlation group. You can see how things are all grouped together there. And what I wanted to show was right here. Well, actually, I'm going to pick another one. I think I went through and I picked a second one. I thought this one was even more interesting. So I'm going to select this second one on here, and you can see this one is really big. It's a really big correlation group, and lots of modems in it. You can see it's also very tight on this correlation. And I think when you see something like this kind of a signal, I believe it's group delay. When you see it looking like this, I know for a fact it's group delay in this group of modems because I was looking at the charts, which we'll get through here in a minute. But you can see it's very tight, lots of devices. So this is obviously a major issue somewhere that's common to all of these devices, somewhere pretty far down the line, because it's not showing me a long distance, as we'll see when I look at the echo cavity. So not being a cable engineer, I'm not going to provide much help on what might be causing this, but I wanted to make sure that you knew the features in here and just show some interesting screenshots while we're doing it. So again, this is a very tight, big correlation group. And something that's in here, it's been in here a while, but what's changed, actually I'm going to go back here. I forgot to mention this. So if you look at these correlation groups, look at the first one I showed, they all now have a number that stays consistent with them over time. So if things are changing, frequencies are changing, whatever, they're all going to have a correlation group number now that's going to stay consistent. In this case, you've got CG correlation group, and this is, I believe, it would be the CMTS number here. In this case, there's only one, so that would be a 1. And then you've got basically correlation group 2, 178, 226, etc. So these now are much easier to track over time. So if you pull a correlation group up today, then you can look at it in 5 days and look at the same correlation group number without having to try to figure out which one you were looking at. So that's a major change that I just wanted to show you. And again, as I showed here that I pick a second one, so that was 2 we just looked at. When I go to the second one, that's 178, and this is the one that is really big. So something that you can do here is you can click on the history icon, the time clock kind of icon here. And this is going to show you historical data basically on the correlation groups. And this is not new, but the fact that it's easier to track now with these correlation group numbers is something that I want to point out. Plus, you may not use this feature, so I just want to make sure that you're aware of it. So you can go in here and you can select a start date. In this case, I selected just the first date that, or the oldest date that I had for this particular correlation group. And then I went ahead and selected that oldest date again because I just want to look at it at the oldest date that I had as opposed to the newest date that I have, which was the 15th. So I'm going to be looking at June the 2nd. And you can see here now that it's pulled up. That's the date range that I'm looking at, June 2nd to June 2nd. And then you click the search button, search icon, and that's now telling you, if you see here, it's showing that you've got history correlation or historic correlation groups now pulled up. And then you're going to go in from there and you're going to select the group that you were looking at. Now, what's interesting is I looked through this, there was not the 178 on here. So today, or I guess I was looking at yesterday's data, there was a correlation group and there was not one back on June the 2nd. So we don't know when that happened or when that started yet, but I can go ahead now and go back in and go into this end date now, and rather than picking June 2nd, I picked June 15th. And when I pick June 15th, then I do see, here's 178 on the 15th, which we saw. Here's 178 on the, this should be the 15th also, so more than one poll. 178 here on the 15th, 178 on the 14th, so you can see it's not here. So I'm going to scroll down, pretend scroll down on my screenshot. And this was the first instance that I saw of it, and this was on the 11th. So that was the first time that it showed up, and this goes all the way down to June the 2nd. If I were to scroll all the way down, I'd have all the way down to June the 2nd on these correlation groups. So this was the first instance of this correlation group showing up. So I went ahead and clicked on that, and then what I would be looking at would be the historical capture of the correlation on that group on that day. It doesn't look that much different, right? It looks pretty much the same. So things went really bad, really south right about this time on the 11th. I went ahead and scrolled up to the 12th, and as I do this, each time I do it, you'll see it changes slightly. So you'll see, in general, it's the same pattern, but you'll see a few little lines here change as I go through this. So I clicked on that, and you see it change slightly. Might be one or two modems that came in or out of that, and maybe a couple of changes slightly in the in-channel frequency response for a modem. But in general, they're all really tight and following the same pattern. So I decided to look again at the 14th. Went up a couple of days, and again you'll see it change slightly. There actually tightens up a little bit on the 14th. So this is a correlation group that's been consistent and consistently bad since the 11th. So that's interesting data that you might want to look at. I went ahead and decided to pick a couple of modems. I picked this one and I picked this one. So I clicked first on this one, and you can see it's a mess. You can see the in-channel frequency response here. You can see the taps. Nothing major high, although this one actually, this is an in-home problem here. This is tap 8, that's your center tap. And everything to the right is going to be your micro reflections, and this is tap 9. And the closer you are to tap 8, generally the more in-home it's going to be. So we've got an in-home issue here, and we do see some in-home TDR here, very short distance. Then we've got an outside plant. Nothing really major on the outside plant either. It's going to be probably these here, taps that are over, or slightly over. And we've got 84 feet, so that's pretty consistent. So it's interesting that it's not this big long distance with this huge group here, this correlation group. Now I mentioned that I thought it was group delay, and when you see this kind of stair step on the left side of tap 9, that does indicate group delay, and then you can also see right here, you've got your group delay right here in nanoseconds. So we can see that that's going on with this particular correlation group. And then I decided to go ahead and again click on this one over here, way to the left, kind of opposite of this. Just figured I'd pick one that's far away and kind of isolated. And that one Again, it's a mess. Looks kind of the same. Have the same group delay indication here, the same delay here, similar outside plant BTDR, similar inside plant here on most of these. So they look very similar. But there's obviously a problem that is causing all of these modems, that big group of modems that we saw, are adjusting their signals. What's going on here is they're adjusting the pre-EQ values, the equalizers in the modem. They're being adjusted based on what the CMTS is telling them it wants to see in order to flatten out this curve. It's adjusting them. They're all adjusting it the same way. So they're obviously compensating for a similar impairment in the cable plant. And again, it's this huge group of modems. So I wanted to look at it a little bit further, and I can actually show you how I use one of the things that I demonstrated last week, if you were with me. I talked about the history feature down here that you can go back and you can click this play button, and it will go back to your first polling period, which would have been like June 2nd, and then it just plays them one after the other so you can watch it move. Or you can click forward or back. So I clicked the play. Actually, what I was going to show you here was if I go back and forth, oops, here we go. If you go back and forth on this, you can see that it does change slightly between these two devices. So this is two different devices, but they're very similar. And again, something I mentioned last week that's new in the application is when you open this screen for the modem, it opens, instead of in a little window, a little window within that tab, it now opens a separate tab. So you can have two devices open at the same time and very quickly and easily go back and compare them just like that, just if you're clicking back and forth between the tab. So what I did was I clicked on the play button, and it went all the way back, like I said, to June 2nd. And here it got to about June the 7th, and the next one, the next polling time, on June 8th, at this point, you can see it change. So it went from here to here. And what was interesting is then the very next polling time, the next image or chart that came up, went back to here. And it stayed that way. So this went from June 8th, and this was June 9th here. And then it stayed that way for several more shots. And then on June 10th, at that time, is when it went haywire again. So it got really bad all at once, and then the next polling times were okay, and then it got really bad again. And then it was consistent at this point, and it just went the whole time. It looked like this. So I thought that was interesting. So again, you can do that by hitting the play button, or you can pause it then and just hit forward or back and go back and forth between those captures of this in-channel frequency response and your digital taps right here, and you can just see how they're changing. And again, there's a huge change right here, right about that time. And from then on, it was very consistently bad. So just for grins, I decided to pull this up in TrueVision because this customer also has TrueVision with us. And just a refresher, so PreEqualization Analyzer is a DOCSIS P&M tool. So you look at that to determine where your upstream impairments are, but they're being compensated by PreEQ or preequalization. So when you turn PreEQ on in the CMTS, it compensates for these upstream impairments and adjusts the signals of all the cable modems so that they look good to the CMTS. But it can hide those impairments as well. So I wanted to pull it up here, and that's why PreEqualization Analyzer is great, because it then points them out to you. But I wanted to show it in TrueVision, which is our diagnostics application that we'd use kind of for real-time diagnostics to see what's going on right now in the plant that's impacting customers. And it's interesting because as bad as these modems look, this is one of the ones that I pulled up, the individual modems. You can see it's online. There have been no flaps. Everything is going okay. You've got some upstream code word errors and a warning stage here. You've got a few things going on in the upstream here, but it's online, and that's because PreEQ is compensating for it. PreEqualization Analyzer is showing you where those upstream impairments are, but you might not realize how bad the problem is just looking at this tool here. Again, this tool is good for kind of your everyday maintenance on what you're going to address right now, either from a customer perspective or the cable plant perspective on a corrective diagnostics kind of platform. So I thought this was interesting. So I went ahead and I drilled in right here. You've got your little drill in TrueVision so that you can look at historical information. And this is the information over the last 24 hours. And as we saw, this correlation group's been pretty consistent over the last, since the 11th or so. So I decided to go ahead and click 30 days right here. And when I did that, this is what pulled up, and I thought this was interesting. I've got 30 days right here, and here is right around June 11th, and we can see a lot going on. Now, what does all this mean? I don't know. If I were a cable engineer, I might have a clue. But there's a lot going on here at about this time that we were seeing where the PreEqualization Analyzer charts went really bad, went south, and that's when that correlation group showed up. You can see here in the upstream, and then what I thought was really interesting here is I've got lots of code word errors, uncorrectables and correctables, and then around that time things got better on the code word errors. I don't understand that quite frankly, but we also see here some changes on transmit power, upstream SNR, and upstream receive power. We see down here on the downstream some things changed, and I went ahead and I scrolled down to look at that. So again, you can see right about the same time we have a big change in the signal on the transmit power here, and the SNR right here drops way down low. And it's getting into the, I guess this is the yellow right here. Again, I don't know why this is getting better here. And we've got, again, at the same time, when things got better with the code words, we had a big spike down here on the downstream. This is all downstream that I'm looking at here, and this is upstream. So I had a big spike on the downstream right about there on June 11th. So again, what does it mean? I don't know. Some of you may understand that better than I do. And it's the same with that, with this particular, let me go back here a minute. With this particular correlation group, what is causing this? I can't tell you. It's hard for me to tell. You've got a couple of distances here you can look at. But if you ever come across something like this and you need help with it and you're using our tool, call your business account manager. If you don't know your business account manager, somebody there does, or you can just reach out to me and I'll let you know who it is. And they will make an appointment for an engineer to look at this and see if they can help you, kind of walk through what you're seeing and see if they can help figure out what it is that's going on. They may need to look at your strand maps, because a lot of times it's related to the different pieces of equipment, your actives and your passives in your network. And you're trying to look at those and figure out if you've got an echo cavity, what's bouncing between where and where to start looking. So they can help you with that. So back forward to where we were here. Yeah, this is where I scrolled down. And then I wanted to show something else. I'm back into PreEqualization Analyzer right now. I wanted to show something else if you haven't looked at it. If you haven't tried out the big map. It's in beta right now, and I think this is the way things are going to be moving, possibly in 5.0. So if you want to try that out, just click that. And when you click that, that's going to open up something that looks like this. And I'm going to go back a second. You'll see that I'm on, these are my friends from Cunningham. I don't think they mind me showing their very clean plant. So you're seeing one CMTS right here. And when you click on this, whatever CMTS you have, you can select a different one, but whatever one you have pulled up in this detailed view is what it's going to pull up in the beta map. And you can see what you're looking at now is just an icon of a CMTS. That's not very exciting, I know. But what's kind of cool about this, one thing I can do is I can go ahead and zoom out. And on this map, I can now see where my CMTS are located. And I can double click on any of these, and I decided to go ahead and double click on this one. Actually, before I do that, I clicked on this expand here. So what this expand does, it's a big map already, but it can be bigger. You can click the expand, and it will expand that further into a full screen view. And then I believe is when I clicked, I double clicked on this particular CMTS. And what that does is it drills you into that CMTS, and it shows you the different nodes in that CMTS. Yeah, right there. So, and then I decided to click on this particular node, and that's going to then zoom in to all the devices on that node. And you can see that here. So a couple other features on the big map that just so you know where things are. Right here, if you click DOCSIS devices, this is basically your filters that I think appear up at the top on the other one. So when you click that, you've got your filters here. If you want to tick off just your red modems, your yellow modems, green modems, whatever. In this case, again, very clean plant. On this particular node, they have zero red modems, a lot of green modems, some yellows. One, I think, gray is not reaching it. So that's where that is. And then you can, if you don't have your legend down here, so you can click View Legend if you can't remember what things are on this particular plant. Again, you've got this. You got one full band capture modem right here. They don't have many in their plant, so you've got this one skinny pin right here, and that means it's a full band capture modem, and it's a green modem, no problem there. But it tells you what your other things are here with your correlation groups. It will tell you if your correlation groups are or your cable modems are in a correlation group there, and I'm going to show that here in a minute. And right here you can click Show Data, and that's going to show you the table information for these modems right here. So you can look at the different readings. And then again, correlation group. I went ahead and picked a different operator because they had one. They had a correlation group, and hiding kind of the map data behind here, but you can see correlation group right here, and then down here, when you click on this, you can open up one or as many of these correlation groups as you want to, and when you do that, when you click that, it's going to pull up under the map the correlation group that you clicked on. So it's a way to get to some of this information right from this map, having to do a little bit less drilling through if you want to look at things in a kind of a quick fashion. So here you see again a correlation group. It's not quite as tight as that other one or as bad as that other one. You can see there's you've got your outside BTDR here that's associated with the correlation group. You don't have any. It's not showing any in-home issues. So something's going on here. It's not at a point yet where it's really bad. It's not reached so much into the red here, or even hardly the yellow. So, but this does show you a correlation group, and that's another way to get to it. So that's a few more things in PreEqualization Analyzer 4.50. Hope this was helpful. I'll look and see if there's anything else that maybe I need to discuss next week. Otherwise, I'll be back with another Tech Tuesday on another topic next week. I hope you can join me. That'll be at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. And if you can, go ahead and click subscribe. If you're not following us already, subscribe and click the bell. You'll be notified whenever we post a video or when we're live. If this video was helpful for you, if you're a user of PreEqualization Analyzer, or you just like to know about PNM, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. And that's all for today. I will see you next week on Tech Tuesday. Bye-bye.